During this period, we see during the Zia-ul-Haq regime, especially the dictatorship, a lot of people have to go into exile during that period. And in London, we have a lot of famous poets like Habib Jalib, who was there, other dissident voices,
Well,
and
yeah.
you end up meeting your wife, your late wife, Madiha Gauhar, and you continue the struggle through theater. Can you tell a bit about that period in terms of meeting Madiha Gauhar and the environment in London at that time?
Yeah. It was a very interesting period in Pakistan, and also consequently in UK, the Pakistani community, exile community, or British Pakistanis in UK. There were people like Faiz and Ahmed Faraz. Then there were political People's Party prisoners there. Murtaza Bhutto and Shah Nawaz Bhutto also were there for some time. Benazir Bhutto. Then also when she was released, she came to UK. So I actually immediately when I reached London, I became actively involved in campaign against the dictatorship of General Zia-ul-Haq. So we formed a committee which was headed by Justice Safdar Shah. He was the president, who was the Supreme Court judge who decided in favor of Bhutto, and he had to leave through Afghanistan for his life, and he came to UK. Justice Safdar Shah. So, and I was the general secretary. It was called Committee for Revival of Democracy, and we held meetings and demonstrations and sent letters. So that was one thing which I was doing for Pakistan, because in amnesty I couldn't campaign for Pakistan. There were rules that own country rules, that you don't work on your own country because then your credibility is affected.
Mhm.
But I was doing it privately, and as an amnesty coordinator, I was working for prisoners in other countries. And during that period, I also was keeping in touch with Pakistan by writing for the Herald and then the Newsline, Muslim, these various newspapers. And then in Herald, I read a story about Ajoka Theatre performance and headed by Madiha Gauhar. And interestingly, Ajoka Theatre, the name Ajoka was coined by me about like 7, 8 years before Madiha formed the group. We established a group. It was in early 70s, but then it couldn't take off. We got involved in so many. I joined PTV, then Salman Pirzada, Usman Pirzada. Itazaz Hassan was supposed to write the constitution. The
For
group
Ajoka,
name, Ajoka means card, contemporary. This is the Punjabi colloquial word. So Madiha had heard of this name. So when she decided to set up a theater group during the times of Zia-ul-Haq in 1984, she decided to choose Ajoka. And she didn't know me as such, but she had seen my first play, which I wrote as a university student, and it was first performed in Kinnaird College, Lahore, where she saw the play and she remembered it had an impact on her. So, something like over 10 years later, she met me in London. She was there for her higher studies, I think, doing her master's in theatre. And I was there as an exile and as an amnesty official. And we met, and she said that, "Aren't you the one who wrote that play?" I said, "Yes." So she said, "Why didn't you carry on writing?" So I said, "I wrote a few plays, but you need a theater group to perform, because stage play or theater play is incomplete unless it is performed, unless it has audience as a part of the whole experience." She said, "Now we have Ajoka and we need original scripts. So why don't you write for us?" So then I started writing for Ajoka from London. And the first play I wrote was Acquittal Bari, which was not only performed, I think, on the International Women's Day, 8 March 1987. And it had a tremendous impact. It related to the Islamic laws, so-called Islamic hudud laws by General Zia-ul-Haq, anti-women, anti-minorities, and then it generated a lot of debate. So then my journey as a
And
playwright resumed.
And I think that was, at the time, it was a groundbreaking way of doing theater, right? That play, for me, you've always said that the women's movement has to be the center of any class struggle. And I think that, can you elaborate like about the significance of that play in terms of the women's movement and what inspired you to go in that direction? Because I think like I think compared to other people I've spoken with from the left and other movements, like your understanding around the women's movement as being a central like peg for change and class struggle is very important, I think.
Yeah, I think firstly, women obviously are more or at least 50% of your society, and they have to have their rights, they have to be free, and they have to contribute to the well-being of the progress of the society. And in that way, also, it is liberating for men also if they are sensitive and aware and supportive of the women's movement. It actually is liberating for men as well. And symbolically, if women are free and women are fighting for their rights, then it also gives inspiration to other vulnerable or oppressed sections of society, like religious or ethnic minorities, or young people, or people from working classes. So in that way, I think women movement is a central struggle for the rights of everyone, people from all genders and all classes. Now in Pakistan, it had become more significant because the general and the right wing supporters of General Zia-ul-Haq, they wanted to suppress women, prevent them from exercising their rights, and under the pretext of Islam or traditional values and customs and all that. This, for them also, it was most important target to establish and strengthen their control. So that's why women came out, and they then were also badly treated and sent to prison, including Madiha and some other activists like Bushra Itazaz, Asma Jahangir, Hina Jilani, Faryal Gauhar, etc. And personally, I thought that the struggle and the discrimination against women is symbolic of whatever is happening all over Pakistan in the society. So if I write for strong about a strong character or a strong story dealing with women, then actually I'm contributing to the broad struggle for rights of people in Pakistan.
Yeah. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense because we see that throughout Ajoka's work. Your play, Third Knock, it employs recurring knocks as a metaphor of oppression under successive military regimes. Could you elaborate about the Brechtian influence within that, where you're challenging the audience a little bit, in terms and what is the symbolic significance of the knocks within the play?
Right. Well, I wrote it as a student of Punjab University. I was quite young and I had no idea what Brecht stood for. And it was just my own personal observations of living in the old city of Lahore, and the buildings and the refugees and the communities interacting with each other, and the misery of people who had nowhere to no shelter and no support, and the states or the vested interest trying to just eliminate and remove these people and build hotels and new buildings. Even in those times, I'm talking about early 70s. So when I wrote this play, I was still very actively involved in students' politics also.
Hmm.
So the knocks also meant knocks of the military. So the first knock was General Ayub Khan. The second knock was General Yahya Khan. And I could see that there's bound to be a third knock. The play ends with the third knock. And then there was a relief of a few years of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's regime. But otherwise, soon there was General Zia-ul-Haq and then General Musharraf, and it goes on. So,
Yeah.
at one level, it was the knocks of the generals, but at a more local level in the story, it is a small housing. In urban slum, and their people are being forced out, and this has happened all over the world and still happening. I mean, you can look at Gaza and it can remind you of the Pakistan building in the third knock. There, although I was rather young and not very much like articulate in like ideological formulations, but somehow I felt that killing, like I had seen that we were shouting slogans of Ayub Khan Murdabad and death to Ayub Khan, or Ayub Khan is a dog, Ayub Kutta Hai Hai, which actually Ayub Khan in his resignation speech, he referred to such slogans. He was so offended.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I realized that if you kill or eliminate or defeat one individual, one personification of oppression, then it is not going to solve unless the system is changed. So the system has to be changed through a revolution and not the individuals who represent that. So I saw one Seth, he comes and they kill him and think that now we are free. And then another Seth comes and they kill him once again and think they are free. And this cycle goes on. And last year we performed this play again as a part of our 40th anniversary, and people were asking the same question and they were counting the knocks, and the knocks obviously keep on increasing.
And so I just wanted to also mention that many of your plays, including Burka Venza, have faced state censorship. And what creative strategies did you guys use to continue to express those radical ideals in such constraint, and maintain your artistic vision?
Well, you see, theater is a very interesting medium or form of art, because here you have various options. You can always change, you can always convey something through gestures or through music or through humor, and it's a live medium. So, in
Mhm.
one performance, if you know that the authorities have come to know and they're sitting in the audience so that they can ban the play, you can always change, make few changes, and they somehow will not really be able to pin you down. So for theater, flexibility in theater is important. Secondly, it requires very little resources. If you don't have resources, you can still do theater. You have got your bodies, you have got your voice, and you have got God's earth. So you go to a yard, go to a factory yard, go to a lawn, go to a village square, and you can still perform. Although, I mean, obviously the artistic quality may be affected a little, but still they can't totally ban theater. So that is, I think, one thing which has been very exciting. And we have found ways of managing to continue our work. So, yes, Burqa Vaganza got some bad reaction from the right wing political parties and some right wing people in the parliament, and they then exploited and exaggerated it. But otherwise, we know, like if you are aware of the game of kabaddi, like kabaddi players, when you put oil on your body, and your art is how to not to be get caught, to be as slippery as possible and run away and cross the line. So we have so many stories in which we have, in a way, deceived the censor authorities or bypassed them or somehow negotiated so that we can carry on performing without compromising on our principle and our own stories. And there we find two techniques which are very helpful. One is humor and the other is music. So sometimes things which you can't say through dialogues and through more straightforward statements, so you can do it through theater or through music and dance and gestures. That is the beauty of theater, which is not available for filmmakers or other art forms.